Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back to the show. We are honored to be here once again with our professional of the year, Dr. Mamiko Odegard, joining us here live today on the show. And boy, oh boy, we have a great show in store for you, don't we? Yes. Well, we've
Oh, we
discussed the
sure
last
do.
two
Lots
podcasts,
of
really the
juicy
importance of
stuff.
early influences and beliefs or family rules that we developed. And, some rules were told to us directly, but a lot we kind of came up by ourselves out of all those actions and outcomes of what we saw, what we touched, what we felt, what we experienced. So apparently family beliefs, apparently family beliefs can help protect us and also make it easier to navigate being around caregivers by providing a set of guidelines to follow. So family beliefs rules can also sometimes be harmful. So please refresh our memories a little bit with some examples.
Great. Thank you so much for that introduction, Joe. I just want to let you know that beliefs are something that just kind of happen automatically. We get exposed from the time that we're born, and there are different rules that are passed down to us. One example is eat everything on your plate. From the time that we're little, we start hearing that sort of situation. But there are others that we take a look at the actions and the outcomes, like yelling and screaming that our partners or family members do with each other, and that causes us stress and we become frightened. And so I just want you to know that that's something that we've talked about, and I'll give you some examples just to make sure that you understand, and then we'll go on to the other juicy part, and that is about thoughts and how they affect our feelings and actions. So one of the things that we don't talk about very often is about infidelity and how that tends to run in our families. And if there are multiple instances, aunts and uncles, cousins, parents who are not faithful with each other and have cheated on each other, then that's gives us permission to follow that. Like, in other words, that becomes a normal behavior. When you marry, you don't really marry, you don't stay together, you're not faithful. It's okay to
Yeah.
cheat. So, you begin to think it's natural. That's going to happen to me. And that's not something that I'm going to tell my partner about. But I know that at some point I'm going to cheat because that's what I've done with every girlfriend, boyfriend, etc. So that could be one rule, that it's natural to cheat in your family. The other is that maybe mom and dad didn't give you enough attention and love and support. And so you think, well, they give attention to everybody else. I'm just not important. I'm just
Yeah.
not worthy. And so anything that happens to us, we tend to internalize, right? We take it personally. And I've also mentioned that a rule might be that arguing is really bad, because it's not just arguing, there's raging that's going on that's out of
Yeah.
control,
Mm-hmm.
anger. And so then you think, anger is bad. It should be avoided at all times. And then what about this? Don't get too close to Uncle Larry. He's going to touch me and he's going to make me feel uncomfortable. So it makes you wary of other people, usually of the opposite sex, but not necessarily. And then if a person is abused or molested, it's kind of like, oh, I've got to keep it to myself. I
Yeah.
can't tell anybody else because other people are going to get upset. They're going to be mad at me, so forth. So those are some of the negative rules that we begin
Yeah.
to on, and we begin to think that that's normal and that's real for us. But I also want to stress that in our families, we also gain some positive rules. And that is, not many of us have seen our parents learn how to negotiate with each other. But if you ever did, it gives you hope that you can work things out. You can come to agreements. Or you saw that your parents were affectionate with each other and with the kids, hugging them verbally, supporting them, recognizing them, praising them, letting them know, letting you know how important you are. So you start thinking, love is natural.
Yeah.
And I can begin to show love. The more I show it, the more I can get it, and I feel better about myself. And then the other thing, too, that oftentimes doesn't happen in families is that you don't talk about your deepest feelings. So what do? We turn to our best friend and we
Uh,
start confiding in them. So
yeah,
when you do, it's like a catharsis, it's a release. And so then you start thinking, when I talk about my feelings, I actually feel better. I can come up with clearer thinking and strategies of what to do to work out my problems. And so I just want you to know that even though you may not have the positive influences,
yeah.
you might get it from other sources. And then,
Mm-hmm.
it's important because you can become the person that you want to be for sure.
Got it. Wow. So, I mean, this is amazing because you're saying that, we have to be aware of our thoughts, right? Because our thoughts lead to feelings and our actions to follow. But really, we are what we think too.
That's, yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly right. Yeah, because are, if you think about the foundation of a house, first you put the slab in and all of that, and then the walls go up, and then you have the roof, right? So that you can think of that as the foundation, which would
Yep.
be the beliefs, the family beliefs that get passed
Mm-hmm.
on generation to generation. Well, within that, there's a lot of things that you can do in the space of a house. You can decide where the interior walls go, how you're
Yep.
going to paint it, how you're going to decorate. And so that's the same analogy that, our beliefs are like this main frame and
Yep.
structure, but our thoughts are moment to moment and they can change very rapidly. And they definitely affect our feelings as well as actions. So let me give you some examples of that. If all of a sudden you're in a group and you personalize it because people are tired, it's the end of
Yep.
the day, it's after lunch or whatever, and they're not giving you attention because
Ah.
they're on their cell phones, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then you think, wow, nobody's paying attention to me. I
Nope.
must be rambling. I probably sound confused, like I should just shut up, really. That's what I should do. And so, what that does is those thoughts of nobody's looking at me, nobody's paying attention, I must be boring, I must be rambling, etc., then you start feeling inadequate. And there's a
Yep.
lack of confidence
Mm-hmm.
there. So, you feel unsure about yourself. And these definitely affect your actions. So, what I'm saying is, your thoughts can lead to feelings, but it also leads to actions because in this case, the person just quieted down and closed his or her mouth because he didn't want to be humiliated or be ignored any longer. So I'm just
Wow.
telling you that these thoughts may not be really real. They could be very irrational, but we get programmed to like go back to our safe spot,
Yeah.
and that quiet, to be isolating, and so forth. And so we keep growing that distance from ourselves to others. And these thoughts, unfortunately, I mentioned, are irrational and then they become distorted and they
Mm-hmm.
self sabotage and self defeat. So, you know, this person may not say anything to a group or groups again because they're starting to think that nobody really cares about what I say. I come
Yep.
across being boring and dull. I don't have anything to offer. So it really begins to change not only the self esteem, but the behaviors that follow and
Mm-hmm.
the emotions that are kept inside that nobody wants me, I'm not interesting, I'm dull, and those sorts of feelings lead to sadness, anxiety, stress, and so forth.
Got it. Well, this is, work that you've been doing as a professional. For those that may not know, I do find it important. There's a lot to you and the work you do and your credentials. And, you've been doing this for years and you're really, is it true that so nothing really is predetermined then, right?
That's right, exactly.
So if we're repeatedly witnessing like out of control behavior or things like in my life, like I've witnessed with my family, it's it's like this cycle, a vicious cycle, right? But I want to break it. So I can become opposite and loving. I don't have to be. People say, oh, if they came from a bad family, you have to be bad. That's not the way it works, right? So it's sometimes makes people better people because of this.
Right, exactly. And that's kind of what happened, I think, in your case, is that,
Hmm.
you became aware of what was going on in the family. You didn't want to repeat it. And so you became a better version of yourself because you didn't want to carry on that legacy. So this
Yeah,
is where, each of us can
can.
get higher and higher behaviors and emotions,
Hmm.
and as well as the outcomes that we produce. It's not
Hmm.
something that's just accidental, but it's something that we create because of free will and if we believe in ourselves that
Yeah.
we are an agent of change, then
Then,
we can create all kinds of miracles in our lives. And so,
yeah.
in order to truly grow, I'm saying that you have to be the best version of yourself because otherwise you catch yourself with defeatist attitudes.
So
And,
true.
there's a concept. This is something I used to teach psychology. And so one of the studies that was done to show you about learned helplessness it had to do with rats, believe it or not.
Oh
It
gosh.
was a tank full of water, and then the researchers would throw the rat or rats in this water, and there are some that
Wow.
just kept on swimming and swimming and swimming because rats are efficient and great swimmers. And then there were some that when they threw the rat in the tank of water, the rat would just sink to the bottom and not do anything because it had
Wow.
already learned that, oh, and one important part is the ones that sank to the bottom would be the ones where the researchers would hold on to them and until they stopped fighting. And then they would drop them in. And so the rats already learned that they couldn't control
Hmm.
what's happening to them. So I'm saying that
Amazing.
the same thing happens to us as human beings. Are we learning early on that we can have an impact
Yeah.
on what happens to us? We can really grow, we can struggle, we can create our future and our present for sure. Or do we just give up? And that's what I want to address is just giving up. It's not giving yourself the love and the chance that you deserve.
Oh, we don't want to give up. We don't want that. No, no. All
Not at
right.
all.
So, what should we know? Come on. Yes, tell us, tell us.
Okay. So one of the things that I want you to know is that going back to the thoughts and beliefs, so this is kind of a combination of it. There was a psychologist, a researcher named Albert Ellis, and he came up with rational emotive therapy or rational emotive behavioral therapy.
Okay.
And he really was confronting all the erroneous beliefs and
Okay.
thoughts that we have and how it leads to us, making tragic and catastrophic assumptions about what's going to happen. And basically, just like the rats who went down to the bottom, just really giving up and getting more and more ingrained and mired. And so, Albert Ellis is one that really talked about and clarified the black and white thinking that we have. And
Mm-hmm.
the real data and the reality just seems to go against it. It wasn't supported by facts, but instead, this illogical thinking led to illogical behaviors, like in that first example, where the person just became quiet and said, okay, I don't want to humiliate myself again. I'm not going
Yeah.
to ever talk in a group, because there's also this perception that you got to be liked and you got to be accepted by everybody, including yourself, which puts us into this perfectionistic category, right? And nobody's perfect. We're all perfectly imperfect. And so there's that flaw, a big flaw in our thinking, and we become hopeless that we're ever going to change and so forth. So you're absolutely right. We create what we think
Yeah.
and we become what we think. And, some things like, why can't I be like so and so? Why do I have to be so nerdy and so awkward? And, I'll always be socially unacceptable. I'll never have a best friend,
Ah,
right? And so it just like the rat, we give up psychologically, physically, emotionally, and so forth. And so it's imperative. The point is, we don't have to stay that way.
nope.
It's a choice because I want you to know that you only know what you know. And this is where I can really help you to make the change in your thoughts, to change your feelings, and to get positive actions and results. Because when you take action, the universe rewards you. And so if you make a list as an example of all the people that you know, think about it, that the lowest common denominator with that person is you have something in common. Maybe
True.
you're in the same class. Maybe the person is a colleague, a work um, person that is with you, or somebody that you met at the gym and you just happen to exchange phone numbers. So what you do is you go through the list and you say, hey, I
Hey.
wanted to, this is a beautiful day. I wanted to go take a walk at such and such a park or take our dogs walking.
Mm-hmm.
Wonder if you'd like to join me. And they say, oh, I can't do it today. I'll take a rain check. And so then you say, okay, great, thanks. And then you go on to the next person on your list. That's what I'm talking about, is that you can be empowered just by taking small steps and not having this fatalistic black and white attitude, but know that change happens in different shades. And you want to get to that shade of sunshine and white light and all that surrounds you.
Ah, thank you for sharing that. And you are helping others, really handle themselves so much better in different types of situations. And you say that though there really are, two types of people in the world, right?
Oh, absolutely. There are two types of people. So, as I talk, see which category you tend to be.
Okay.
Some people in certain situations might be a little bit of both, but we tend to be more predominant. And you don't have to remember these names, but I just want you to remember the concept. So the first one is the external locus of control person. And
Okay.
that's the type of person that really feels like whatever he or she does really doesn't matter. Their actions, what happens to them, are all decided by fate. In other words, it's predetermined. So, as an example, if you get a promotion at work, it's not because you worked hard, you came to work on time, you put in extra hours, you're really prepared for the meetings and all that. You just think, well, I happen to luck out because my supervisor really likes me. And, that's why she promoted me. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's these sorts of false thinking and
Okay.
beliefs. But that belief is that you don't really have control over what happens to you, but instead it's already like predestined as we're talking about before. And so these are the people, the external locus of control people are the ones that tend to struggle more with stress, anxiety, depression, and so forth because you don't really feel like you have true personal power. The second is the internal locus of control. And this type of individual is one where he or she feels like whatever actions that you take basically
Yeah.
impact you. You can get what you want by putting in effort, by taking proactive steps. And so this is the type of person that feels obviously more empowered and that you can choose what happens to you. Like the going back to the promotion. The reason you had the promotion is because you worked damn hard for it. You showed up and in many ways, you made an effort to get to know your supervisor and what he or she wanted, and you produced those results in a timely fashion. And so it's all about your efforts and what you're going to get. So
Yeah.
it's really important for you to decide, do which camp are you? So I was talking recently with a person who really doesn't communicate his needs and wishes. And so
Ah,
he just feels like, well, if I leave it alone and I don't talk to my partner, then she'll get over it and we'll see how it goes. Or in his current job situation, instead of really being proactive to talk about, yeah, I'd like to advance in the company and I'd like to be a partner in that company where I have more voice and I'm more financially remunerated. He's just going to wait and see what happens. And so I'm saying to you, whether it's in a personal or a career path, the way that you feel and truly believe whether you have personal power has everything to do with your happiness, with your success, and with your growth, for sure.
oh, I love it. And, people that don't know you personally, you do have to brag a little bit. As a best-selling author, success coach, relationship therapist. I mean, she's been on TV before. She's a woman who accomplished so much. I mean, you immigrated from Japan at a young age. I remember you telling the story how you didn't know anyone, you didn't know the language, you learned to develop, and it's amazing how your experience turned you into helping others, help their experiences along the way. And, you are just such an exceptional woman and doctor and person to want to help people and, make them have the love and the desire and the relationships that they want and need and should have. It's beautiful. She's helping pick up people's self-esteem. And really, it's just, I'm honored that, she's here on the show and always excited that you're here. And there's a lot of work that you do and you help people. And I know with the affirmations and group coaching, one-on-one. And, as we talk today again, it's about taking control of your self, right? But people are like, well, I don't really know. I don't know. But the overall message, I feel like it always is that we could change. We could be what we want to be at any time. And that's a beautiful gift to have, to know, and not to be so closed-minded, right? We can change. We could believe. We just might need a little guidance, a little someone to hold our hand in a sense. And I just think this is fascinating because I think there's so many people out there that can relate and say, "Oh my gosh, like I want this now. Like I want to be better," So, ah, how did you
Oh,
want to kind of
thank
end?
thank you for all of the
I
kudos that
can't.
you've given me. You're pretty wonderful yourself too, and I
No.
admire the fact that you actually took your own situation and made a better version of yourself too. So maybe you could talk a little bit about that. Like, how did your family inspire you to grow?
Well, the way they did it was people wouldn't think it's the right way because they did not um excelled, it advanced me. They didn't nurture me, care for me, they didn't groom me, they didn't, say, Jill, we're going to help you do this and we're going to do this and we're going to go through life and we're going to study together, we're going to have, oh, how you doing in school, let's do this, let's do this. It wasn't like that. It was so much chaos, and they were also involved in their like miserableness. Like my parents didn't get along, if everyone out there doesn't know yet. So I grew up in a household where it was upsetting. It was hard, but and I didn't have anyone say go to college, go to school, go do this, go do that. And oh, hold on, actually, we have a caller coming in. Hi, welcome to the show. You're live on the line. Who's this?
Hi, ma'am. This is Kenneth.
Hi,
How's it
Kenneth.
going?
Hi, you are live on online with Dr. Mamiko and Jill. How can we help you? What would you like to ask our guest?
Hi. So, I have a few questions. Actually, I was wondering how can one improve communication in their relationship?
Great question.
Well, thank you, Kenneth, for asking that. And, the way that you start with great communication is not necessarily as to how you give feedback to another person, but it's really started out with the exquisite listening. Like many of you listening might be in the marketing or sales areas, And you learn to be exquisite listeners. And by that, what I'm talking about is that when you talk to a potential customer, whether it's about real estate, selling cars, or selling a service or whatever, you find out about the pain. You find out about the needs that that person has, and they tell you everything that you need to know. And so one of the great ways is to be able to really listen and to let them know that you're hearing them. And sometimes we do things like we summarize, so if we're offering a service, you say, okay, so what you're needing is XYZ so that you can protect against leaks for your roof. And you want it at an affordable price, and that it has to be done within 2 weeks because you're starting to notice some problems. So you got to have it done immediately. So when we are really paraphrasing and showing that we're hearing them, we're understanding, we're connecting with them, it's miracles happen basically. And that is the customer feels respected, understood, and you begin to really form a working relationship with trust. So that's one example of how you get that communication going. The other is to be able to compliment another person and say what it is that you appreciate about that person. And that person will oftentimes say thank you and acknowledge you, but really feel more at ease with you. And that's one way to start a conversation, with some sort of a win-win approach of what you admire, respect, or like about an individual.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. Does that answer your question, Kenneth?
Yes, ma'am. I've got a pretty good understanding. I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you for calling in. That's a really valuable question. So thanks for helping all the listeners, for sure.
Thank you so much, Kenneth. Have a
I
great day.
appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
And if we want to reach out to you, please share with us before we go how we do so.
Well, the best way to get in touch with me is to go to my website, Act on Love, actonlove.com. And that's easy to remember because that's exactly what I want you to do, is act on love towards yourself and others. Just let that love spread. And when you go to the website, you'll see all kinds of valuable blogs as well as information that's there to help you be the best version of yourself. And you'll also see my toll-free number there, the 855-608-4800. And so you could really reach out to me directly. You could even leave a voicemail, and I promise that I'll call you or text you back. And I look forward to connecting with you, assisting you to be your best self.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. You have a fantastic day. And to all of our listeners, stay tuned. We'll be right back with more.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.